This is the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast, session number 208. Joni Neidigh on Athletic Hypnotic Gold.
Welcome to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast with Jason Linett, your professional resource for hypnosis training and outstanding business success. Here's your host, Jason Linett.
Game on, it's Jason Linett here with a content-packed session featuring Joni Neidigh from down in Florida, working with athletes as a hypnotist. And first things first, even if working with athletes is not necessarily your interest, this is a conversation you really need to listen to because Joni is a worker, someone who's out there really making a difference out in the profession, working with people, whether they're athletes on the student side of things, all the way up to professional and everything in between. And realize this, within most of the things we would often address as hypnotists, there is a performance-related aspect to it, which, of course, that's going to rely over to the person who is a public speaker, but also this is going to have some facets, whether you're working with that person, let's say with fear of a certain situation, that there is some sort of performance aspect when it comes to actually stepping into the car and driving without anxiety, getting onto the airplane, a moment where someone is building up to a specific point in time and then realizing that outcome. And you're going to hear some incredible nuances about how it is that we can best support the athlete, whether it's the entire season leading up to a specific event, or some interesting nuances in terms of how to best support the client after the sporting event is over to best internalize the situation and really create that desired outcome. You could head over to worksmarthypnosis.com to the show notes for this episode to get details about Joni's upcoming training events and just to check out her outstanding work as a real worker in the profession. And while you're there, oh man, I'm excited to share this with you. Head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/online because people have been requesting, if not demanding, an online hypnosis certification training from me for a number of years now, and we've just now launched it. You can check out all the details by heading over to worksmarthypnosis.com/online. It's going to be a combination of interaction inside of the Hypnotic Workers program, as well as live interactive modules to actually get that feedback, get in your practice, and really interact with a live training. The world has become a whole lot smaller, and to have this opportunity where you don't have to book a hotel, you don't have to book flights, and even if you happen to be a few miles down the road from me in Northern Virginia, maybe the dates I've announced up until recently haven't been a fit, and you can get the same quality training experience by interacting live and online. Get all the details and watch the video to learn how it all is going to work by heading to worksmarthypnosis.com/online. Check that out. I'll see you on the interwebs. And with that, let's jump directly into this week's session. This is session number 208, Joni Neidigh on Athletic Hypnotic Gold.
So the very first entry was when I was pregnant in 1992. My husband was being trained in hypnosis in Orlando. So he was going down for these weekend sessions. And I was very skeptical. And so I had a choice to participate. But at the time, mental health was everything for me. I was a new mental health practitioner. And so, of course, my focus was there. And I was very excited about that process and not really interested in anything else. And so I wasn't very open to the idea of hypnosis. And it's interesting because he was actually trained by Gerald Klein. And so I didn't even know that for years. Mm-hmm. Right? But the beauty of it. So I finally have my daughter. It's just a couple of months later, and my husband uses hypnosis in lieu of, I didn't have to have any medication. So we used the process, and it was amazing. I was just amazed that I could do that, Yeah. And the whole time, just kind of locked in on whatever his suggestions and, following his eyes and all of that. So actually it's interesting that I wasn't attached to the process at that point. That was such a significant time.
Yeah.
But again, you have to, I was a, fairly new mental health practitioner and just kind of latched on to everything that I was learning at the time. So my daughters both became involved in the sport of swimming. My son was into golf. And I, was taken out of my office and into the real world and of sports. And I had a lot of experience with that. You probably heard of, and a lot of people have my background. My father having been a boxer, and my brothers were collegiate. One was a swimmer. So we did have a swimmer, some time ago. And then my brother was a tennis player. So athletics, that's all we did. We watched sports. Yeah. We watched a black and white TV with sports, and that was it. Dad decided what channel we would watch. And so that was actually, who knew back then. I was bored, complaining that would become very helpful.
Nice.
And so going through this process with my daughters and watching them start to advance, from very young ages. They would be in Florida top 10 in the sport of swimming. And my son was playing pro-am matches. And I thought, wow, all of the challenges that we saw at each level were they were unexpected. No one teaches a parent, how to do that, what to say, or actually at that time there, sports psychology was there, and it still is, but it's mostly, it's a lot of talk therapy often in programs, whether they're high school programs, because some high school programs are very advanced, as they're feeder programs for these bigger colleges and Division I programs. And that's the type of program that my daughters were in high school. And so I started putting together, really started observing this whole process and thinking, well, this, what's available just isn't enough.
Right.
And, sports hypnosis just wasn't screaming. You know what I mean? In terms of anyone actually doing it and, to the point that they were getting the word out, because I certainly didn't know. And I was willing to, do whatever it would take to help my daughters have an edge, as all, parents would, who have, top competitors, and they see their children progressing in a passion. And so, it's one of those aha moments where I said, what about this hypnosis? And I started talking to my husband about it. And then my brother was just like, you need to sort of shift your practice and really focus on athletics. And I was somewhat resistant to that, just trying to keep my own little window, my own little thing, and have my daughters, not have too much overlap. But the need became so great, and among the athletes, and I had the privilege and of being involved in a program that produced amazing Olympians. They're our current U.S. Olympians, many of them now in this program, where my daughters swam. So we were able to, because of the coach who was willing, and his name was Sergio Miro Lopez. He was quite invested in the mental side, that triangle. I always talk about the triangle. It's the first thing I introduced when I'm, trying to break in and talk to coaches about why this is important, that mental side, because they're so great at the physical side of things. They often have those trainers, and, they have trainers who come in to do the dry land, as they call it, or, the working out with weights and all that. But and then the technical side, sometimes they bring in specialists for those kinds of things in the different sports, but the mental side is just kind of left to chance,
Yeah. What would you say is that element that's perhaps the most missing?
On the mental side?
Yeah.
Information, connection, who do I take, how do I get my athlete, or myself, if you're the athlete, where do I find someone? Who do I go to, and what can they do for me? So I think it's, and the problem being, and I know that I can be quite repetitive, and I will when it comes to this, is the concept of athletes being so time poor, especially student athletes. They don't even have the luxury like the pros, because I've seen all facets of this now, to go home and take a nap midday and come back and train again. They're studying. And so when are they going to get in the car? Because see, I was starting to set this up, and I had athletes coming to me, and they were driving, because I actually live in Orange Park, but they were driving quite a distance to come and see me, which could add another hour to a session, which at the time was a mental health session, but it actually was a great program I developed that aimed for success. Adding the hypnosis was just amazing.
Yeah, I was going to ask that too, that to look at the shape of what you're doing nowadays, coming originally, let's characterize it coming originally from, let's say, a talk therapy mindset, and then bringing in the hypnosis. What tends to be that balance of how you're combining the two?
Yes, that's a great question. So I came from the not so much, well, I started with the talk therapy, but I think being in the midst of developing athletes and learning about their needs, I was adding a lot of visualization.
Yes.
So, and what I think that I appreciate now that I've always done naturally is I was doing a lot of conversational hypnosis.
Yes.
I just didn't know that's what it was. And actually, that was an okay thing, it's just to let that. And I think that is why, sometimes I think at the last talk, I was talking about an assessment that I use, and it sounds like, oh, I'm just, using this assessment to put together this very scripted thing. I can do things, quite naturally in the moment if I need to. When I get these, I was talking to you just, previously about these very, these sort of sense of urgency calls from athletes.
Right.
We just have to go right into, hypnosis, very quickly. And work with that. But so I moved from visualization. And like I said, I had this coach, who was very open, very talented, very skilled. And he was also not only appreciative of the mental side of the sport, but he also used visualization with the athletes. So that was already in place. So the question was what to add. So yes, so that's where I started bringing in that piece, also to set myself apart from other practitioners as well.
Yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to try this. So I'm still in the trying phase, right? I'm still somewhat the skeptic, because with my clients, whoever comes in the door, what I want, for them is I want results. And so if I go in, I train with someone, and I train a certain methodology and it doesn't work, then I'm most likely not going to use it after I've tried it, with a variety of people and situations. And so I was 100% convinced that this was the right thing to do. And I remember the greatest, I guess, confirmation for myself was actually recently when I was speaking at this enormous event, Soccer X. You probably heard a little bit about me, that I have done this back in the fall, but it was a wonderful opportunity that actually a fellow hypnotist, Mark Marshall, passed on my way. And I really, I want to say, just kind of in this same thought train here, that I appreciate so much how we do support each other. And, we think about who would be best for this particular event, or, just to recommend someone is, we have a really, really great network, I think. Don't you, Jason?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think where
Yeah.
the deeper you get into it, it's, I'm in the process of moving my office and buying the next space, and to hear the dialogue, or what about your competition? I go, you mean the people I keep sending referrals to?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, and I'm in the business of competition. I'm teaching teams and coaches and athletes and parents all the time how to be, a good competitor, and what that means, because competition makes us all better. It makes us accountable. It makes us, have a support system somewhat, because there is enough work to go around. But back to this Soccer X moment, because it was so special to me, and I wonder about that with all of us. What was the most so far in your career? They only wanted a hypnotist, so that they really wanted a hypnotist. That's something they didn't have in this huge event that reaches 80,000 plus people, and it was held in Marlins Park here in Miami. And so I was so excited, and I had a choice to be overwhelmed, right, by that, or excited. And the way I look at that, and this is what I tell the athletes, when you walk into an arena, and it was great because I actually had a team talk that week. So I could tell them with conviction, whatever you're afraid of, this is what I want you to do, because this is what I'm going to do. And in fact, I compete before you do this week. So I'm going to report back how it goes, how I did it and what it felt like and what I did about it at different moments, because I had two main stage talks. And so those were really amazing. And I taught them, I said, you have a choice. I said, when I walk out there, my plan is to take their energy, all of that energy, and make it work for me instead of the other way around, where my energy, is, it's working against me, that I'm worried about, what they're thinking, or, what I'm like, when that type of energy is coming towards me. I decided what I was going to do with it. And that was just take it and turn it into, I always have this gold energy kind of, that's my theme, gold, mental toughness, gold energy. There's a lot of great things associated with gold, and especially in athletics, they seem to love it. But my favorite moment was my first talk when I stood up, and the first thing I said was, I am a hypnotist, And I think that for the first time, I fully understood that that's a huge part of who I am.
Yes.
And a big part of why my clients are getting better or getting the results, whatever it is they're coming in to see me for.
How would you define that? How would you state that is that thing that's making it not just stand out from people being attracted to you, but that thing that really is getting in and making this outstanding result?
Well, I would say, first of all, that conviction.
Yes.
Because I always tell my clients, and I tell people, you can fool other people, but you can't fool yourself. And we don't want to do that anyway. We want, the more authentic we are and the more we believe in what we're doing, the more, that it's more real it is. And the more they believe it and they buy into it, because they know that, that's why I'm so interested in training other people to do the type of work that I do, and somewhat the way that I do it, not exactly the way that I do it, but, just to understand that there are a lot of things that I know that I can save them a lot of trouble.
Yes.
And tell them. So how do I know that I get that, that this is the thing, that hypnosis is that the thing that's producing the change or helping the result? I know that because I'm using it.
Yeah.
Primarily with the athletes. I feel that even the educational components, which I do think are important, even that assessment that I talked about recently, that has all used the whole reason for that information gathering, and is, in order to make the hypnosis more effective, more specific. I do think, more generic type programs where, we're talking about, and when I say generic, confidence, I hate to say that, but let's get a little more specific about confidence. Where is it that, what does that even mean to that person?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a construct.
Well, even to get to the result of that, you hear the person actually, they may even just say, I want to feel more confident. But to take that at surface structure, what does that actually mean? You've got to delve deeper into what's that going to feel like? What are you going to be seeing? What are you going to be doing differently? And this is where, as much as so much of our community holds on to the phrase that, oh, the client writes the script for you. I think only a few are really living in that mindset and actually pulling it off rather than just saying it because that's the trending thing to say.
Right. I like what you just said too, because if the client doesn't define the result, how do we know they have it?
Like, give the example of I've got a baseball player that I'm currently working with that, I mean, and to give some hint to his skill, as a sophomore in high school, so he's not even a junior or a senior yet, but as a sophomore, he's already being scouted by professional teams.
Oh, right.
And to find out from him that confidence is going to be this absolute stillness, that everything else on the baseball field could be going crazy out in the stands. For him, it's this real auditory sense of silence, even in spite of everything that's going on, which that ain't what it is for me.
Right.
But to learn from him, that's where the direction we need to take it. And that's the state we need to build together.
You're right. And that's perfect. And I think a great question. This is the question the very first question I ask. I say, how will you know that you're better? How will you know that this is present? So that's it. And so for your client, that it was that auditory, that component, that he wanted it to look or sound like that. And I do, one of the things I love about this sport of swimming, and I've learned how to incorporate this into the other sports as well. But swimming taught me a lot in terms of really taking advantage of using the five senses, which is something we do beautifully with hypnosis, right?
Yeah.
But think about a swimmer. So with the swimmers, I can work with the sound. Let's just start with the visual. So they've got the arena, but they've also got the color. We've got the color. So obviously the pools are that beautiful turquoise, that color. And then you've got the auditory being above and below the water because it sounds very different. And often, they want to work in a different place, where your client wanted that silence in that arena. Sometimes mine want it underneath. Does that make sense? And so they were dealing with a different sound and they're describing that sound of, the crowd is now muffled. For some that's more comforting. For others, they get their energy when it's louder. So we simply teach them how to turn up that volume under the water, right?
Nice.
And that they can do that. And then kinesthetically, there are all kinds of things to do with feel, the way the body feels before, during, and after they perform, and the way the body actually feels as technically. And that's something that I love working with coaches. And I've been doing a lot of that recently. I just finished a guide for volleyball. I'm going to work with a volleyball team this weekend in South Carolina, college team and a club team up there as well. That coach helped me tremendously with the language so that he, where sometimes it's uncomfortable for an athlete to look at the coach and actually be able to, just soak in that language and translate that to the body. But if they can get away sometimes from maybe a situation that's uncomfortable for them, they may be socially and, have that anxiety when they're around a certain coach or a voice, or, we could get into so many things right now, but I think you understand what I'm saying is we get them to a place where they're comfortable and they're training that technique, listening to, with maybe a live hypnosis session or even an audio or both. They tend to do beautifully. And it's, because they're relaxed, right? They're in hypnosis. And so they're swimming with their minds, and then the body and the mind work together. And the coach is like, wait, what? I've told that kid, 100 times. And I'm like, and I did it once. How about that? And this is this is how I approach the different coaches and teams to say that this is very, very, very different. And it's all important. Having someone to vent to, having a sports psychologist or a mental health practitioner, and of course, if other things are involved, very serious matters, there's always a place for everything, but there's certainly a huge place for this. And then just to finish my thoughts here, moving on to olfactory, that you've got the smell of chlorine with the swimming. And then in other sports, what I've started to do now is create smells if they can't really identify with anything specific like that. So we create a smell. We have them choose scents, the scent of wedding or the scent of this or that. And so I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. And it seems to be working really, really well. So, and then gustatory. Oh, okay. Well, swimmers taste the water, and they taste probably a lot of other gunk in the water too. Yep. I'll leave those stories to them. They like telling them, but.
Well, I mean, I'd ask the question is that, do you have the experience, the background of being the swimmer, or are these things that you've picked up from working with them so much over the years?
So I have the background of being the sister of, and, and we did not have, of course, all the technology. So I was quite bored at these meets with my brother, but I learned a lot. And so, I have actually been in the pool, but I've never competed. I don't think that I'm at that point, but I'm thinking maybe if my joints start to break down, and I don't think they will, but I love running. Maybe I'll stick my head under the water and do that. And, when I'm 80 or something, this is my 60th, I'll be 60 this year, and everything's still good, so. But
well, you find that element that, being the chameleon of picking up what's around you, that, it was suddenly I found myself working with bodybuilders and power lifters. And it wasn't just because I was getting an interest in those things myself, though having zero interest in competition, just wanted to feel stronger. But to have one who just suddenly dropped the statement of, as soon as I walk in the gym and I smell the environment. And what was
Mhm.
happening was that his competition wasn't in the grungy old style gym. He's not like going into an LA Fitness or somewhere that's really pristine and clean. It's these really old school, dirty style gyms where all the stuff is like one step away from being so rusted, you've got to throw it out. But he goes, in competition, we're an arena and I don't have that smell. And as soon as he brought that up, it's the whole, yeah, there's our copy and paste. There's our click and drag. And, we start to pick up what are these sensory cues that are already there and how do we activate them? So I'm curious to ask, with that process, are you exciting all of the sensory representational states in the hypnosis? So by the time they're there, everything that suggestion wise is now anchored to that experience. Is that the thinking?
That's the thinking.
Nice.
And, you can't miss if you do that, because if you don't know, if you don't quite know what they're, what works best for them, you're hitting all of the senses. So if you'll see that, I believe in the audio that I'll talk about later.
Oh, cool.
One of the first ones I did, I try, I try to hit all of those senses, but I do that because sometimes they don't know. Maybe this is a great way for me to learn, but no one's ever done that. So what I like about what you said about, your client walking into the competition, but it had the smell of the gym. We know, and we've always known that, one of the things I did and when we do in our practice is we work with, both sides. We work with child abuse and we work with the offenders as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we know is that we're all very attached to familiarity. And so if you're right, if you can create that familiarity and, and we can anchor that, we can have them create that smell and call that up anytime they want to. What's so great now is with all these essential oils and the
Yes.
kinds of things, that's so crazy, but we do that. I'll have like a whole team will pick a scent or something. They'll pick lavender and that's their scent, the scent of winning for them. And they actually, if you look at a team sport like volleyball, after they win a match is the best time for them to have that, if they have that on their wrist or something, and really reinforce that smell of winning. And it seems to, they really love it. It's just another way to celebrate and incorporate, just keeping that momentum, if you will.
Yeah. Now you brought up something there that I love, which is that so often, let's even expand this out. I'm sure that everything we're talking about also applies to working, let's say, with the first person with public speaking, the person with some sort of test anxiety or interview challenge, that a lot of these principles are going to be universal. But you just brought up something outstanding there, which is that post-game strategy. Any thoughts on what we can do to enhance that aspect of the work?
The post game?
Yeah.
Yes. So one of the things that I do that I have available in the guide that I use with the athletes is called a post meet or post race or post match or whatever reflection. And so I have them think about, what just worked, what didn't, and sort of start creating anchors for those things that went right. And then they look at, and the question, I think it's always a good question to ask. I do that, I'll do that today. What could I have done better? So, and how am I going to accomplish that? So how can we do that as hypnotists? I think we, first of all, have to find out what their perception, is of what went right and what do you want to work on next? And instead of saying what went wrong,
Right.
I'm kind of careful about that, of course. I want to make a suggestion that something did. Using strategies like that, you can even use, I don't tend to use aversive type strategies. Again, using negative suggestions, but I have had clients who chose to have something represent, refocusing, if you will, not necessarily to say, okay, well, maybe if I put this on my wrist after we lose a match, right? This scent, just kind of using an example to pair, maybe that will be enough to help me. It's not about being punitive or, critical. It's about saying, this is a signal for me to refocus and get back over here.
Yeah.
And to remember all of the things, let my body and mind come back together and remember how we anchored all that in to begin with so that everything flowed. Because, I often hear, I had an ice hockey player and he said, I went to this higher level opportunity and I couldn't do anything wrong.
Mhm.
I love that, right? And then he comes back to his, private school, his high school situation, and he was, himself, very good, but not even quite himself the way he described it. And I said, okay, well, that's great. Let's go back and let's go through that experience that you just had, and see what you see and hear what you hear, and talk about what was going on and who was influencing you. Because, I've always said this, coaches and parents are the great hypnotists, and we know that, right?
Yes, yes.
So can we change that? Well, I think yes. I've had numerous opportunities to do that, and I'm grateful for that, for coaches and parents that are open. They're not all going to be.
Mhm.
And so what do we do then? We teach our clients how to, okay, and this would be a great example of a post, something you do in post meet race or whatever reflection, that sort of post session, to say, okay, you did. So when your coach spoke in that manner and gave you that kind of feedback, it, quote, ruined the rest of your meet, right? And so what can we do about this? So, okay. So he's, well, my coach isn't going to change. And I said, that's right. And, and that's going to be true for a lot of people in your life, not just in this sport, but when you go to work for, what you might consider a horrible boss or, that, a coworker. But what you can change is you can politely nod and turn that volume down, right? Or change that voice to, whatever character that you might
Nice.
not take seriously at the moment, right? And so I use, and we call it all different things. For me, I call it voice shift. And I have a video that I have them watch. And it's kind of outrageous, actually. I get bored sometimes. And I know they do, they would too if they just, listen to a, because I have every technique that I teach, especially if it's an NLP technique or I want to reinforce something in hypnosis. I have these, I'm using this in my training as well. I've made videos.
Nice.
Follow
Yeah.
up. Yeah. So, there again, there's your visual just in case they heard it, but they didn't get it. And so,
Well,
but
the
they,
same as, what's great about the athlete, and tell me if you've also found this to be true, this is a person that's used to practicing something. So
That's right.
I tend to find that compliance of here's a thing, please do this thing, they're more likely to do that thing than most of my other clients. And you brought up something great there of just simply the use of technology, that here is some way that I can make it easier on you.
Yes. Yes. I know we all have like recorders on our phones. I use an app I really like. It's called Rev, R-E-V. It's free.
Oh, yeah.
I love it because you can record for such a long time. And so if I have an athlete I know that's going to have a little bit of downtime on a bus and that's where they struggle, or maybe they kind of, that's where they start to, their negative self-talk and they just haven't quite, replaced that habit. I just make a really quick 2-minute recording and have them put it on repeat. That's just, there's just so many different ways that I approach things. And that's just from all these years of learning and trial and error. And
now I have to nerd out on technology for a second because I used rev.com to write the first draft of my book, because with rev.com you can record the audio, then click a button and it automatically uploads to their service, and within 24 hours you've got a transcript. Are you using features that I don't know about?
No, that's great. No,
Yeah.
no, that's it. And I love, I didn't even mention that, but I do love that you can transcribe from that. But no, I just use it, because I can text it to them
Yes.
immediately, label it who it is. And also, all of their affirmations and are on, we record those as we're developing those together. And so that's done, and then as they change, they can add or subtract or whatever we need to do. So, I mean, we just have so many tools available to us, right?
Too many.
I know you can't have too many
As I'm in the
though.
process of many projects at once, I have to sincerely thank you for not introducing me to something new that I think I need. I wanted to ask
I
you.
think there's a very minimal chance of that happening, but I'll be really excited the day that it does. Yeah, I'll probably put that out there all over the place.
Yeah,
Yep.
nice.
So,
So looking at this will kind of get into the practical, but also the business side. How is it that you're working with your athletes? What's kind of the structure? Are you setting a program? Are you starting with a series? What's kind of that entry point? If it's the one-to-one, I know you do group seminars, but let's talk for a moment about that one-to-one.
okay, so on one-to-one, my I would say if I had the choice, and I don't always, I really prefer to work
Yes.
season to season, beginning to end, because then we can actually see a result. And always explain that if somebody comes in mid-season or they come in to see me right before a big championship, I never dissuade. I never say, you're not going to get a result, but I do say this is a process because it is. Whereas if someone comes in to us for smoking, obviously you and I know we know what to do because
Mhm.
we found something that we really value and we know that works. The same thing with athletes. I know that if they start beginning of season to the end, they're going to have enough tools to be successful and see a really nice change. But I also know that through the process, they're just their training, they're going to experience a lot of things. And so if they don't have the tools to deal with those along the way, they may or may not get the same result that they're going to get if they come in last minute. I don't think they will, because have they learned to deal with, teammates when they get to a new level, and teammates aren't always celebrating that for them. And so they try to sabotage, unfortunately, their efforts and create other problems for them. So there are all kinds of things that you want to work with through the season so that when that championship meet, comes, and it doesn't have to be, you can get a great result that counts earlier, but for some reason, that's where the focus always goes,
Mhm.
right? Matters to the coach for sure. That they are, as your client desired, they are able to stand there and tune out the noise and focus on whatever it is they decided intentionally as we sat down during the first part of the season that they wanted to do. And so I start with an assessment before they even come into the office, just so I know I have a really good idea about what's going on. And then I am a big believer in, if we have collateral information available, we should use it, just like your kid going off to school, right? What does the teacher do? Send home this little form getting to know your child. I mean, who knows your child better than you, right?
Yes.
Other than themselves, depending on the age, have awareness. But so if I can get coaches and parent information, I get that. But so I take them through the process of really start with self-awareness and using not only cognitive distortions is something I'm teaching in my hypnosis program, because I do think it's an important. You don't have to be a therapist to understand that there's a name for those. And, the things that we do, the patterns, and sometimes just knowing that is very comforting.
What
And
specifically are you referring to with that?
with cognitive distortions,
Yes.
one might be an overgeneralization.
Hmm.
So that, and they don't even know what that is, but you notice that they're doing that because you see that in the assessment or you hear that in the conversation, that or emotional reasoning being, I feel something, therefore it must be true.
Right.
And so you hear that a lot, especially with a kinesthetic, right? So everything, even though it's not touch and they're talking about an emotional feeling, they use that word feel, so paying attention to their language, as you know, is so important. So, oh, well, I feel like a loser because, my relay would have won if I'd gone a faster split. I had the slowest split. And so they start, doing a lot of labeling, so that would be one. So now there are losers, and they're also, they're just, poor performers, and they're the ones that cause that relay, even though any one of the four could have gone faster, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you start to do that. You start to have them learn how to dispute those things. I think self-disputation is very important. because, it's a great, really quick reframe, refocus tool. And then taking that and incorporating that in with hypnosis, makes it stick. And I know that because I for 26 years, I've been working with, cognitive behavioral techniques, and I've seen that, yes, they do work. And I had tended to see clients for a long, long period of time. And now that time is much, much shorter because I can back that up and, have a very quick change. And so, there again, I feel a lot more convicted in saying, yes, this is how hypnosis works. And let me explain to you, some of the benefits. But by cognitive distortions, there are many of them. So I have an audio that takes the athlete through specific examples. And I have, thankfully, the athletes that I've worked with that have had a lot of success have generously allowed me to use specific examples of things they had to overcome, and that has a lot of influence with the athletes too. And I think that's a good thing to do. It's also good for those athletes to be able to pass something on. I think that's they're all becoming ambassadors now and able to really do some good. And if they'll say, and also you need to really consider hypnosis, we're really getting somewhere with that now, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. I'm starting to see more clearly that I'm becoming a large part of this movement. And I know, especially in USA Swimming, and I'm proud to be a part of that. And I can't wait to see more names attached to that. And it's happening. We know that. I mean, you're working, you work with athletes, but that's how we get the word out.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can people learn more about your work?
Well, so they can go to I have two websites. I tend to post a lot of athletic articles and information and success stories on aim-for-success.com. And then my website, JoniNeidighHypnosis.com as well. So either of those are great, to learn more about me.
Excellent. And you mentioned an audio a little while ago?
I did. So I want to offer a free product just so you can get a sample of my work and how I've structured things. If you can go to the website, there's a link, but I have a store. It's aim-store.net. And I have wellness products, but I have tons of athletic products. I haven't even posted the volleyball audios and products that we just made. My guide is hot off the press, actually, hopefully tomorrow morning before I walk out the door to head to the airport. So, that's how we roll, right, Jason?
Yep, that's how it usually is.
So if you go to, and I would say by the time you're able to, they're able to hear this, they can go to aim-store.net, and if they'll just type in the coupon where it says coupon code, the word Jason, the name Jason, that's pretty easy to remember. They'll be able to get that product.
Excellent. And we'll link directly over to that in the show notes too at worksmarthypnosis.com. To kind of bring it home, any final thoughts, although I may respectfully lead that getting an immediate result, getting some sort of significant foot in the door from day one, to really set that expectation at its peak. Any final thoughts to share with the listeners?
I would like to share that they already know a lot about teaching athletes this great inner coaching style, and I think sometimes people they stay away from accepting athletes or referring them, but there's at the very least right now, they can do some great basic work and they can get a quick result. And, we've seen it. We've seen that just by providing this new, this is a huge tool, hypnosis, but by providing something to them, we're going to see change, and so don't be afraid to take those clients and feel like you don't have enough. I would certainly suggest, I'm going to encourage everyone to work in this market because first of all, it's huge. So it's great for the practitioner, but it's also just so needed. And I say that from, sitting in front of many, many clients, but also as a mother who really wishes that my son had more of that in his sport, and that I'm grateful that my daughter's had some exposure to that, and that, Ashley certainly has a lot of exposure to that now. She's also in the mental health field. She's in graduate school for that. So hopefully she'll be passing this on at some point in the combination of all of this. So. But yeah, so do the work, sign up for the work, come train with me. Of course, I'm going to ask people to do that because I'm very excited about it. And I know that I have a system that's very easy to use. And again, I do believe that it's a process, and it also affords you the opportunity to build rapport and connect with an athlete and have a relationship over sometimes a very long period of time. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean we're not making them better. It means that we are available and helpful to them every step of the way. Because when things like, when these athletes become, and if they become professionals, or, they're receiving scholarship money, things start to change in their minds because they don't know how exactly to navigate that, and they are always, it normally starts with a little bit of fear of, oh, now I have something else to lose, right? And it can affect all kinds of things. So, Jason, there's so many different things I could say, but I hope and believe that we've talked about some things that will help people today.
Jason Linett here once again, and as always, thank you so much for interacting with this program and sharing your reviews and leaving your feedback online. And once again, head over to worksmarthypnosis.com/online. It's a live, interactive online hypnosis certification training to get trained and certified by me through WorkSmart Hypnosis. Plus, those seeking certification, you can get it from the ICBCH, the International Certification Board of Clinical Hypnotherapists. Check out all the details online and reserve one of your spots in this upcoming event at worksmarthypnosis.com/online. See you on the inside.
Thanks for listening to the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast at WorkSmartHypnosis.com.
Hey there, it's Jason, and I want you to be one of the first to find out as we upload amazing new content. So do this right now. Click the subscribe button right here on this video. That's going to link you to our YouTube channel here, and you will be the first to find out as new resources and downloads are made available. Do it now.